In today's video, we're going to be doing the top 5 tortoises. Before we get into it, if you enjoy content about reptiles and amphibians, remember to like and subscribe. So let's start off with the Hermann's tortoise. So these tortoises range from about 120 to 150 pounds in the UK. Their enclosure can either be a vivarium or a tortoise table. You want this to be at least 4 foot by 2 foot on a base, but that's at least. You could easily go for a 5 foot by 2 foot. Now for their diet, So as I was saying, for their diet, you can use Arcadia's tortoise food, which is optimized 52. You can also use different tortoise foods like the habitat. I would stay away from foods like the Komodo food because they probably aren't as nutritious and they have a lot of waste products in them. So as well as this, you can also use things like weeds, flowers and vegetables like lettuce and Swiss chard. The tortoise foods can be up to 70% of their diet. You can also have dried flowers there, and you can keep them outside or let them go outside, and from there they can have bits of grass, which will be really good for them. Now in terms of heating and lighting, the best one to use is like a 100 watt mercury vapor bulb. This is because it has all the heat and UV that they need for them to grow healthily. And you want to provide them with fresh water daily, so I'd use the Habitat tortoise bowl. So just make sure your water bowl can be easily accessed by getting in and out by your tortoise. Now in terms of size, these tortoises range from about 8 to 12 inches as adults. That's their carapace, which is the top. So they're quite small for tortoises. Next on the list of the top 5 tortoises is the Horsefield tortoise. Now these tortoises range from 100 to 120 pounds in price, which is a bit cheaper than the Hermann's tortoise, but they are a bit smaller, ranging from 6 to 8 inches of carapace length and size. In terms of enclosure, you can keep them in a 4 to 5 foot by 2 foot vivarium or tortoise table. Anything bigger will work, but I wouldn't really recommend anything smaller. For heating and lighting, you can use a 100 watt mercury vapor bulb. Alternatively, you could use a halogen or incandescent flood lamp with a T5 10 to 12% UVB bulb. In terms of their diet, it's pretty much identical to the Hermann's tortoises, so dark vegetables like lettuce and Swiss chard. You can also use grass or hay, tortoise foods like the Arcadia optimized 52, dried flowers, weeds. Just make sure they're safe before you feed them. So in terms of lifespan of both Horsefield and Hermann's tortoises, they live around 60 to 80 years at a minimum, but can easily pass 100 years of age. Now you can keep both of these tortoise species outside in the UK, but you will have to hibernate them, and this requires more research than just to keep them inside. So next on the list is the leopard tortoise. So these tortoises are slightly bigger than the other ones, ranging from 18 inches all the way to 28 inches for larger individuals. In terms of price, the cheapest you get of these is about £180, but they can go up to £200 in some places. Because they are a bigger tortoise, I'd recommend a 6 foot by 2 foot tortoise table or vivarium. Some people keep them in a 5 foot vivarium, but I think it's just too small for these tortoises because they are so big. When it comes to heating and lighting, I'd recommend a mercury vapor bulb, like all the other tortoises on this list, although you could use a 100 watt halogen, basking flood or tungsten basking flood, whichever one you prefer, and a 12% T5 UVB bulb, but I think the mercury vapor bulb is just easier. So for the diet of the leopard tortoise, they eat a lot more weeds and grass and hay and flowers rather than leafy greens. So stay minimal on things like lettuce and Swiss chard, although you can offer them maybe twice a week rather than every day. Also, you can feed them commercial tortoise foods, but I'd only really recommend the Arcadia one for this species because it has more hay and natural things in them. You don't want to be feeding them like a fruit or vegetable based tortoise commercial food. Just stick to the Arcadia one if you're doing that, or feed more weeds and grasses. Like all the other tortoises on this list, you can keep them outside in the UK, and yes, they will need to be hibernated. So keep that in mind if you're thinking of getting a leopard tortoise. So at the start of this video, we were looking at the Eastern Hermann's tortoise. Now we're looking at the Western Hermann's tortoise. So being the Western dwarf Hermann's tortoise, these guys are obviously smaller, ranging from 4 to 6 inches, which is quite different from 8 to 12 inches of the Eastern Hermann's tortoise. They are a lot rarer though, so they are ranging about 190 to 200 pounds in the UK right now, whereas the Hermann's tortoise is around 150 pounds. Although keeping animals in bigger, better enclosures is always better, you could keep a Western dwarf Hermann's tortoise in a 4 foot by 2 foot tortoise table or vivarium for its whole life, and it would do amazing. Their heating and lighting is the same as keeping a normal Hermann's tortoise, so you could have 100 watt mercury vapor bulb, although you could go a little bit down on the wattage, but I wouldn't really recommend it. So yeah. So in terms of their diet, it's pretty much the same as the Eastern Hermann's tortoises, being mainly leafy greens like lettuce and Swiss chard, weeds, flowers either fresh from the garden or dried, and you can feed them tortoise food like the Arcadia. So they are basically just like an Eastern Hermann's tortoise, just in a smaller package. Next on the list is the Pancake tortoise. This species is the rarest on the list, ranging from 200 to 250 pounds. So for the enclosure, I'd recommend a 6 foot by 2 foot vivarium or tortoise table. It really doesn't need to be high for any tortoise, but especially these guys. For the diet, they prefer more weeds and like things like Arcadia Optimized 52, and keep leafy greens, not as much as a Hermann's tortoise, but not as less as a leopard tortoise, so that's something to keep in mind. For the heating and lighting of a Pancake tortoise, a mercury vapor bulb that's 100 watts will do the trick, but so will a 12% UVB bulb that's T5, as well as a halogen flood lamp, which is 100 watt, will work just as well too. The size of a Pancake tortoise ranges from 6 to 7 inches in length. Yes, that brings our video to an end. If you did enjoy the video, remember to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.